So usually I voice over my videos because I live in a small house and there's usually a lot going on, but this morning it's quiet. Now you may hear my chair squeak or my dog pass through a few times, but other than that, hopefully it'll be pretty quiet and we can just use the regular audio for this. So if you were following along in a previous video, I was talking about this piece and how I use the Micron pens, these, and they bled and they made everything gray. So I bought some Prismacolor and I showed them in the last video, and I did a little experiment. This was a loose painting where I didn't draw it out ahead of time. I just put some color down and then I came back with the Prismacolor, and I like the Prismacolor over it, but now I want to, and I did a couple of practices, now I want to try the Prismacolor under the watercolor. So this is one of the flowers I did for Inktober, so we're gonna see how this goes. And I'm gonna start with the background, which is a really kind of a dark, it's a forest green. The first thing I'm gonna put down is some sap green. And I'm gonna get quite a bit of that, just because I don't like to make extra colors. And I'm gonna use just a tad bit of Payne's Gray. It is such a strong color. I barely touched that. And I want a little more, but Payne's Gray makes me so, a little bit of eraser crumbs there. Payne's Gray makes me so nervous. There we go. Yeah, see, it gets dark so quickly, but that's the color I want. And then I'm also gonna do, no, I think I'm just gonna do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and put just straight water onto my background. And then I'm gonna drop that in. And we want the water, you can see my water's a little bit green here. It needs just to be clear water. I failed to pick up a second container of water. I like to use 2 containers of water, one to rinse my dirty brush and one for clean water. And I didn't get the second one picked up. Now I'm painting this, but I have my reservations about it, not because of the pens, because I think those are gonna be fine, but because, and I'm just dabbing this color on. I'm just dabbing it on, and I'm gonna come back with some other color as well. We're just letting it bleed out there. I have my reservations because I did not realize when I started working on this piece that I have put moisturizer. I use shea butter on my hands because I have eczema, and that really helps. So if you have eczema, get yourself some shea butter. And it had not completely soaked in on the side of my hand. And over here, I'm not certain how that's gonna work for us. We're gonna see. We're gonna see, but I have my reservations about it. I'm gonna get some just Payne's Gray and put down here. And I'm gonna touch that in some of the areas where I already have green and just let it kind of bleed out. We want water on our brush, but we don't want it too wet. I have a bad habit of dipping it down too far, creating water droplets on my brush, which drip everywhere. I'm just adding that in and getting as close as I can. Remember, the paint will only go where the water is. So when you're putting down wet on wet, just be certain that you're putting it exactly where you want the paint to go. A little up here. And then I'm not gonna wet this area, it's so tiny, but I'm gonna come back in. My hands are shaking, sorry about that. I'll lay it down. There we go, put a little green on top of that too. Now, I'm gonna save my colors because I might come back and add more on the back, because to me it's not quite as dark as it needs to be. So I'm gonna turn this off for a second and blow dry this so that I can come back and either put more color on. I think I'm gonna wait till the end because I'm gonna see what I do with the flower here, and then I'll decide if I want it darker in the background. So hang on a sec. Okay, so that's done. Now, one thing you need to know about colors, this is 100% cotton paper. And these colors that I'm using, which are the Windsor and Newton, it's the, if you've seen my other videos, it's their little field travel set. And the colors can be very vibrant when you put them on, but they dry much lighter. So still, I'm gonna leave that, even though I'm pretty certain I'm gonna come back and put more in the background. I'm gonna leave that for now because I wanna work on the rose itself. And you also, if you've watched any of my videos, you know, well, I may not have it out yet, so hopefully I do. But I am going to review this set. If it's not out, it's coming out soon. I'm gonna review this set of watercolors, and I make this color chart. And it's a good thing because now I can take a look at this and I can look at my rose and I can decide which colors, because I'm either gonna use, when you're looking at it, you're either gonna use the cadmium-free red or the alizarin crimson. And so it gives me a choice of things in here to take a look at these colors. The one I'm looking at is kind of peachy, so I think I'm probably gonna go with the cadmium-free red and then just very sparingly add the cadmium-free yellow. So we're gonna actually, I'm gonna start with the yellow and sparingly add the red. Strike that, reverse it. All right, so I'm gonna start with the yellow. Making sure my brush is clean from that green background. And it was. Cadmium-free yellow is a very strong color as well. It's kind of like that Payne's gray. So I'm adding a little bit of that red in. I'm gonna add a little bit more. I used to have white in my palette. I no longer do with this set. I've gifted that to a former student who loved it. She used my daughter's. They were out one day painting and she used my daughter's set and she loved it. And so I'm just gonna give that to her. And I think I need a little bit more red. All right, this is the color I want. It's kind of an orange, it's kind of a peach. It's a real pretty color. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm not gonna do wet on wet. I'm just gonna start with a straight color. And the area we're gonna be looking at is right in here. This is probably gonna be my problem area because I still had the moisturizer there and the oil soaked in. And you know, oil and water do not mix. So we're just gonna see what happens. If it fails, it fails, but you can watch it here with me. So I'm just gonna do a light wash on the whole thing with this color. Basically, I'm just wanting to know how this is gonna do with, that's soaking in pretty well. I'm just wanting to know how this works with those pins. So we're just gonna go over the whole thing here. A little more water, want some light areas. And once I get this color on, I can always come back and add more. And if you're working in a miniature book or you want to work in a miniature book, I do have a video that shows how I made this tiny book. And if you are working in it, remember, I'm bad about this, but remember, bad about not remembering, remember to put a little piece of paper down so that you don't paint on your other pages underneath. I start doing things and then I forget to do stuff. I have ADHD, so sometimes I get ahead of myself. A lot of times I get ahead of myself. All right, so I would say initially, this looks pretty good as far as the pen not bleeding into the rest of the piece. Now I am gonna do this one over again so that we can compare apples to apples, because this is pink and this is kind of an orange. And I don't want to say, well, this is better, because it is brown. I didn't get it in gray. I got the brown that was in my set. And for those of you that might not have seen the video previously, excuse me for reaching, this is the set that I got, the Prismacolor. You can see it for the ring light there. That's what I got. and it had 2 browns in there, and 0.005 is what I used on this one. So again, hang on a second. I'm gonna blow dry this. I'm gonna come back and we're gonna put more color on. Okay, so that is dry. And with it being dry, I can say it does not look like it muddied up my color. I am gonna make a little more color. And if you're wondering why my hand disappears occasionally to the side, I am looking at this on my iPad. That's for my reference pieces. I'm gonna add a little bit more of the red so that we can have a deeper color on some of this stuff. And whenever you mix a pigment in, it's a good idea to get your brush wet and kind of rinse any additional pigment out so you don't oversaturate areas. So I'm looking at where I created the shadows with additional shading in there, additional hatching. And I'm just gonna come in. Now, I am also, I did not mention this up front, I am using the Royal and Langnickel. These are their Zen, this is from their Zen brush series. I like these brushes, they're not expensive. Some people swear by only expensive brushes, but hey, some of my stuff is more expensive. The paper's more expensive, but the brushes, if you can find a good brush, it doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. So I've put that around the edge. And the thing about this is cold press paper, so stuff does dry fairly quickly. However, I am able to come back in with this cotton paper and move stuff around. So I put the color on the outside and I'm kind of dragging it towards the middle. So, and I'm gonna pick up some color there. There we go. Get that out of the way. So far, everything's staying where I put it. That's a good thing. I'm gonna let that dry because I'm gonna come back with the same color and drop in that area. And all I'm doing is just looking for my shaded areas and I'm just adding some color in there. Keeping in mind that this will dry a little lighter than what I'm putting on. So I'm rinsing my brush and coming back in, and usually I turn it, but I'm going to keep it the same direction for you guys. And I'm working that little edge out there, softening it up because I want my color down in there. And I'm going to come down to this area. This is a good dark area. Got a lot of ink down here. We can really try this out. And so far I'll say that I'm liking the Prismacolor. I have had problems with Prismacolor and students. I would get the Prismacolor for the students and then they would say, Miss Tanya, I've just opened the package and it's dry. Not Prismacolor, Microns. And so I started buying Prismacolor. I'm turning it, sorry guys. I started buying Prismacolor and they seem to work well, but I had not really tried them for myself other than to, you know, write with it once just to see how it was working, but it seemed to be working well for my students. So I thought I would try it and I'm glad that I did because I think this is going to work well for me. In class, we were just strictly doing cross hatching. We weren't putting watercolor on it. Now I want to move, I've got a dark spot here and I want to move it so I have water in my brush and I'm moving it to the area that I want the color. It's the thing with watercolor, it's going to move around, so you've just got to know how to move it back where you want it. So I've moved that out of the way there, created that light spot. And if your piece gets dry and you realize I have a piece I want to lift some color on, this Zen set, I think it came with 4 brushes, maybe 5, but it has a scrubber brush, and these are nice stiff bristles that will allow you when it's dry to get this wet and come back in and scrub out colors in areas. I call it my eraser. So if I paint outside the line, I'm trying to be meticulous with my painting, I can come back and fix that. I'm going to add just a little color down here all the way across. Not necessarily, it's a little darker for a shadow over here, but I don't have to be careful about making one area darker and one lighter. Just one color there. Also right in here we have some shadow. So I would say overall that I do like this. but I will recreate the other piece again. I'll redraw it and we'll see how we feel about it after that. It could be that I don't like it, but I don't know. I'm really liking this. So it seems to be handling the water, the color very well. So I think that, yeah, I didn't want to. I actually got my set, if you're in the US, I purchased it online from Walmart and they shipped it. And I think the whole set you just saw of those Prismacolor were $14. I think that's what they were. So I thought that was a pretty good price because, you know, you can buy these pens individually and sometimes they are pretty expensive. So I was happy to see that it was not. And I like to look for inexpensive things so I can pass that along to you and you'll know where to go buy things. But yeah, I think this is going to work well. So I'm gonna go ahead and paint the rest of this and then I'll come back at the end and show you how it turned out. For this, I thought that I had kept the record going so you could at least watch me paint this, but apparently I did not. So I did go over the entire piece again, and I also added a little bit of the alizarin red to get some of the darker pinks in here. And then I did go back over, as I mentioned earlier, I went back over the background one more time. So this is how the piece turned out. And at this point, if I wanted to come back and take one of the pens and go back over lines again, I could. I don't think I'm going to. I'm gonna leave it just like this, but I will say that this is actually much better than the Micron pens, and I'm gonna pull it down a little bit more for you so you can see it up a little bit closer, so you can see how the lines stayed and they didn't bleed out, and I have my true colors. So as far as I'm concerned, these Microns, and my husband likes to draw and he said he could use these, and that's wonderful. I'm going to pass those on to him because he does not use watercolor. He uses colored pencil and pens, so I'm going to let him have those. And I'm going to continue using the Prismacolor markers. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please drop those down below. And if you liked this video, if you found it helpful, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. I would appreciate that so much. You guys have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one.